What's up guys, Eli here, back for another new stuff video. I know you're going to be disappointed. It's all prog and prog related adjacent genres, space rock. There's even a jazz album here. There's a little bit for everyone with a forward thinking mind, if you will. So I've been a prog fan for a long time. I guess I've just been getting a little bit deeper into it, kind of something I've always wanted to do, but it's always been a pretty large part of my regular listening. So all prog fans, this one's for you again. Let's get started. Starting off, got a couple of things from Kansas. A band that, I've talked about them here quite a few times. I wasn't always a Kansas fan. Only in the last 6 or 7 years I've become one, and they are quickly becoming one of my favorite bands. Absolutely an amazing band with an amazing discography. So here's two releases from Kansas that nobody really needs. Two singles. They're both from the Power album. This is the song Power with let's see, what does it have as a B-side? You always got to have the B-side to the single. Power and Tomb 19. What is Tomb 19? I don't. So Tomb 19 I don't think was on the album. So okay, maybe I did need this, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it is on the album. I'm really fucking bad with track titles. I've also only really listened to the Power album maybe twice. I do like it. Yeah, Power was their 1986 album. By then they'd already had like 10 albums, probably something like that, so close to 10. And we have Can't Cry Anymore. So Power was kind of their... it's not the first album that they did that would kind of, break free of the, their earlier prog stuff. And we're talking 1986, so they had already kind of, shed a lot of their prog roots by, late 70s. So yeah, Can't Cry Anymore with a single of, with a B-side of Three Pretenders. I'm going to have to look these up because like I said, I'm bad with track titles and I don't remember if either of those are on the actual album. And then I've had this on CD for a long time, but whatever. Now I have it on vinyl. Their fifth album from 1977, Point of No Return. I gotta say, I'm happy to have this on vinyl. No, I didn't need it. I'm more of a CD guy, but goddamn, the artwork really fucking pops, right? So Point of No Return, their fifth album. This is arguably their best album. It depends on who you ask. But it's definitely a fan favorite. I would say 9 out of 10 Kansas fans are going to have this in their top 3, hands down. It's a masterpiece. It's got songs like, of course, songs that you guys would know if you're not a big prog fan. It's got stuff like Dust in the Wind, which was, one of the biggest songs ever written. And that's a song that I would appreciate more later on in life. Obviously, I knew about it, most of my life. I knew about it since I was a kid, but I only really started appreciating it for what it is these last couple years. Dust in the Wind, Lightning's Hand, I like that a lot. The Spider is a nice, cool instrumental written by Steve Walsh. It's mostly keyboard virtuoso stuff. The title track, Point of No Return, awesome. Timeless, classic album. Then from 1976, I have the second album from Baltimore prog band Crack the Sky. This is the band I've heard the name, maybe once or twice. Not a whole lot though over the years, and so I picked this up. Nothing too special about the jacket. This is kind of funny though. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like I don't see this on a lot of records. They put a spot where you can put your name on it, which nobody did, which is kind of funny. Because people always used to do shit like that back then. So that's kind of strange. It's in pretty damn good shape. So yeah, I have not listened to a lot of Crack the Sky thus far. Like I said, they're a prog band from Baltimore. Just from, some cursory listens. They're a prog band, not in the sense of like Yes or Genesis. They don't have, they don't have 20-minute songs. At least not on this album, they don't. Their songs are pretty concise, anywhere, in the 4 to 7 minute range. So that's kind of more reminiscent of like Gentle Giant. They did that kind of same thing. I think they're progressive more in the way that they just don't adhere to standard 70s rock tropes. Like, one of the songs on there I noticed had saxophone. The next song had a lot of acoustic guitars. So a lot of variety and some experimental elements going on. It's not super. It's not super, far out there prog. It's more, there's the progressive rock. There's many different types. You don't have to sound like Yes or Gentle Giant to be considered a progressive rock band. So to me, they sound more. I even heard maybe a little bit of Hall & Oates in their sound, a little bit of Steely Dan. This is based off very very little time spent with the band so far. So I'm really, to be honest, I'm really looking forward to listening to more Crack This Guy. And also from 1977, a lot of stuff from 77 today. Jan Ackerman and Kaz Lux, or Luz, I don't know how you would pronounce that. So Jan Ackerman he was a guitarist for Dutch progressive rock band Focus. And so this is kind of a solo album, basically. I don't know who the fuck Kaz Lux is. I think he's the guy that sings on this album. Maybe he was a famous singer in the 70s, Europe. I have no fucking clue. But I do like Focus. They're not my favorite prog band necessarily, but that's pretty cool. Really, really cool artwork. Not my favorite prog band by any means, but I figured I'd check this out anyways. And it is sort of a proggy album. I would say this is more of like a jazz rock, which I feel like Jan Ackerman would dabble in stuff like that in some of the later Focus work. So I think he's definitely a jazz fan. Again, haven't spent a lot of time with this record yet, but what I'm hearing is more of a jazz rock. But it's cool. I should also mention that the name of the album is Eli. I don't know what the fuck's up with that, but I'll take it. And from 1977, again, I don't know how that happened, but we have, obviously, STYX with The Grand Illusion. This is their 7th full-length album, and I think it's a great album. It's not my favorite STYX album. I mean, it is a fan favorite. It's loved by many. I do think it's a good album. I prefer the stuff that came before this just a little bit. But with this album, they were still keeping the kind of prog light elements, if you will. It's still a fairly progressive album. It's definitely, if not prog, it's definitely along the lines of, art rock. There's some, hit single stuff on here, but like there were in almost all the STYX albums. But there's definitely adventurous songwriting here, which I think, whether you want to consider STYX a prog band or not, or whether you want to consider this a prog album or not, it doesn't really matter. But at the end of the day, there's some cool stuff on here that's, not just your everyday straightforward 70s rock, which is something I can appreciate. Most known for Come Sail Away, which I think is a great song, to be fair. But, that was a huge, huge single. I don't know if there's, I'm no expert in radio history. I don't know if any of these other songs are singles. I'd imagine one of them, maybe The Grand Illusion. But yeah, I'd imagine they probably had 2 singles off this album at least. From 1973 this time, yes, Tales from Topographic Oceans. This is their 6th album. I cannot believe they had 6 albums by 73. That's fucking crazy. This album, oh my gosh, this is like their grand statement, if you will. This is a double LP. Even the CD, it comes on 2 CDs, because I have the CD version. This is just their massive album. This is their album that's so fucking progressive and so far out there that a lot of Yes fans actually don't even really like this. It's not an easy listen. It's long. It's fucking long as hell. It's got long songs. It's, I don't know the history of this album too much, other than it does kind of sound like the guys trying to make their most bizarre, I don't want to say clusterfuck, but they're most just out there, you know, fuck you to radio type albums. I've had this for a long time on CD. I do like it. It's not my favorite Yes album. It's not even one of my favorite Yes albums, but it's worth listening to just because it's so goddamn challenging. And to be honest, for that, I really do appreciate this. I think every prog band should have an album that they just lost their minds on, and you know, maybe it doesn't work, but you know, just the fact that they went so far out of you know, what is considered normal, or what's even considered progressive for 1973. I just feel like they did not want any labels. They didn't want to do anything that was anything that anyone would expect. Those are kind of my thoughts on this album, because if I were to actually try and talk about the music, I wouldn't even be able to do it. So those who know, and those who don't should not start here if you've never heard Yes. Their next album from 1974, seventh album, Relayer. I like this album a lot. I have it on CD, have for a long time. I really dig the artwork too. As much as I love Roger Dean, I don't always love his artwork, but this one as a full piece is just pretty. It's pretty breathtaking. I think it's cool. Just the fact that it's mostly white and with a little bit of gray. You know, most of Roger's artwork is very colorful. This is like the least colorful thing he ever did. But anyways, talking about the music, so this album had a little bit of a different lineup. This, you know, Yes didn't have a ton of lineup changes, but they had a few. So on this album, they would have Alan White on drums, who was pretty much usually in the band when Bill Bruford wasn't there, because he would leave. He'd come and go a few times. And then you had Patrick Moraz on guitar. Him and Steve Howe still in the band. Of course, Chris Squire and John Anderson. This is a very cool Yes album. This is still not my favorite Yes, but it's one of my favorite Yes albums. I love how it starts off with the whole side one is just one song, almost 22 minutes, The Gates of Delirium. For me, where this album stands kind of apart from the rest of the, you know, earlier Yes albums, this sounds more. This is like almost like their jazz rock, almost kind of jazz fusion album. Now, Yes, we're big. They were big fans of, and they became friends with Mahavishnu Orchestra. Mahavishnu Orchestra are one of the kind of like one of the best known, most popular jazz fusion bands. You know, well known for John McLaughlin, who's, you know, a guitar god, considered just almost not even human by prog standards or by musical standards. So he came from that band, and so Yes, you know, they loved Mahavishnu's music. They became friends with them, like I said. I'm pretty sure they toured with him for a while, and maybe it was even around this time, because to me, this sounds like they were, you know, instead of doing their regular prog stuff. I mean, it's still very prog, and it still sounds completely like Yes, but just leaning in a little bit more of a jazzy direction, and it's really, really cool just for that reason alone. Not a super long album. Well, most 70s albums aren't. You know, it clocks in at it's around 40 minutes, I guess. Perfect album length. And then their eighth album, so I guess right here I got 6, 7, and 8. Eighth album from 1977, of course, 1977. Going for the One. This is an awesome album. This is one of their most underrated albums, I'd say. It definitely has its fans, and there's nothing not to love about this. But it just doesn't get talked about as much as, you know, their first 6 albums. I think personally it's definitely on par, you know, with their earlier, more classic stuff. I've had this on CD forever, and I have spent a lot of time listening to this. I would say this is probably, I mean, if I were to rank the Yes catalog, I just think this is an underrated album. It you know, it's loved by all Yes fans, but I think it doesn't often get put next to like their 3 or 4, you know, classics that people love the most. I think this one sits right next to those comfortably, and it just just because it's a little bit later, it's 77, I think it gets overshadowed just a tad, just because it was a little late in the Prog game. But yeah, also probably my second favorite album that has a naked dude's ass on the cover. Now we got a couple Asia releases, because what would an Eli video be like without me talking about Asia, right? I don't do that often. But anyways, I have this Then and Now compilation. This came out in 1990. This is known to be not a very good compilation because, I don't know, it just, up until 1990, they only really had a few albums. So this didn't really need to be made. From what I've read, it's pretty much a label cash-in. The label was trying to recoup money from the band. How can we do that? Let's just put out a fucking best of and, you know, get a bunch of simps to buy it. What's cool about this, though, I guess you could say, like, what would make this worth buying for a Asia fan? There is a new song on here, or should I say an exclusive song on here. I don't remember which one it is, though. But I remember it having Steve Lukather from Toto on guitar, which is great. I mean, he's a fucking phenomenal guitarist. You know, usually you can get this for $1 or $2, and if you're a completionist, why not? They got a couple Asia studio albums as well, because these are later albums, and these are long out of print, so they're not super easy to find typically. So I got 1996 Arena. This is the album number 6. Of course, you know, weird looking Roger Dean cover art. I don't think I've ever heard this, to be honest. I do like Asia's later stuff, to be honest. You know, they're one of those bands where, like, you know, they're most known for their debut album. But, I mean, dude, they kept cranking out albums over the decades, and, you know, they're good. They're really good, actually. Some of their later albums are some of my favorites. I haven't heard this yet, but I'm definitely stoked to hear it. So was the lineup on this one. They had some lineup changes. They definitely had some lineup changes. But it always worked. They always found the right dudes, in my opinion. All right, you got John Payne on vocals and bass. He was, you know, replacing John Wetton, and he's great. He's got a fantastic voice. As much as I love Wetton, I have no problem listening to John Payne sing. I think he's very underrated. Founding member Jeff Downs, keyboards. Elliot Randall on lead guitar. And then you got a rhythm guitar, Aziz Ibrahim. So 2 guitarists on this album, which, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, I should know my Asia history. Asia didn't usually have 2 guitarists, so. And then on drums, you got Michael Sturgis. The name kind of sounds familiar, but I don't know. Not sure. So yeah, you pretty much only original member here is Jeff Downs, but, you know, like I said, he seemed to always be able to find the right guys for the band, because I think all these albums are actually really, really fucking good. And I also have from 2014 Gravitas, their 14th studio album, and I have listened to this. It's really good. I like this. I mean, to me, this is on par with anything they've ever done. You got John Wetton here returning. He'd be in and out of the band a lot, on vocals and bass and acoustic guitars, apparently. Carl Palmer on drums. To me, Asia definitely does need Carl Palmer. I just, because he's one of my favorite drummers of all time. I would definitely prefer him in Asia. You got Jeff Downs. I think Jeff Downs actually plays on, I think he's the only guy that is on every Asia album. I could be wrong. And you have a young, unknown, virtuoso guitar player, Sam Coulson. So this came out in 2014. 8 years later, I wonder what Sam Coulson is up to. He's really fucking good. I mean, look at the shoes he has to fill. You know, like Steve Howe. How intimidating would that be? But yeah, I mean, the solos here are fantastic. This album to me is definitely kind of a return to the more proggy Asia, and I'm definitely okay with that. Not many people watched my Genesis album ranking live stream from a couple weeks back, but if you did, you'll notice that the only Genesis album that I didn't have was their debut, From Genesis to Revelation. So I picked this up cheap at a record store. Just a little cheap tape copy. This is from 1969. Yeah, this is one of my least favorite Genesis albums. It's not bad. You got Peter Gabriel on here sounding actually really good for a young, unknown singer. It's actually a good album, and when you think about how young they probably were, young and inexperienced, it's probably makes it that much more impressive. But just compared to what Genesis would do, after that, for me, I just can't appreciate it as much.
I also wanted to add in the quick story. So when this album came out, their record sales kind of got fucked because a lot of the record stores actually put the album in the Christian music section just because of the title. They just assumed it was like some kind of Christian rock or just a Christian band in general. So it sold really poorly. Can you fucking imagine? Oh my God.
Got a couple of CDs left here. This is the only metal release you're going to see today. MESHUGGAH, CHAOSPHERE from 1980 or 1998, third full-length album. I pretty much just grabbed this randomly at a store. I remember hearing this back in the day, and I don't know, I had a flash of nostalgia. And I have re-listened to it since then, and I still actually really enjoy this. This is MESHUGGAH, still in their earlier phase. I'm not a big MESHUGGAH fan. That's the funny thing. They have a couple albums and releases that I could probably get down with. I don't know. This one just kind of scratches a specific itch for me. They're heavy, but they're also very, very forward thinking, very technical. As technical as they are, their music is still pretty concise. It's just kind of robotic sounding technical metal. Not quite thrash, not quite death metal, not even really quite prog. They're just kind of their own thing. I would just call it technical metal. But if I listen to this at the right time, I can get into it. Sometimes MESHUGGAH, sometimes they really annoy me, but I do have nostalgia for some of those earlier Nuclear Blast releases, and that was going on when I bought this, or should I say rebought it. This one I might already have. Maybe I have 2 or 3 copies. I don't know. But I bought it anyways because I couldn't remember. Blue Oyster Cult, On Your Feet or On Your Knees, their first live album from 1975. Not their best live album, but it's still good. I mean, these guys were a fantastic live band. Still are. What can I say? I absolutely love this band. More and more every year. I grow even fonder for this fucking incredible band. Then I got this cool Hawkwind double disc thing. I think this came out. I think this was made in Germany or released in Germany. It's got their second and third albums. Oddly enough, I don't know why. So their third album, Do Re Mi Fa Sol Latido, and their second album, In Search of Space. This is back when Lemmy was still in the band, I believe. I know he was still with them on the second. I'm pretty sure he was still there for the third as well. I have not heard either of these bands. If you've followed my, CD collection videos closely, you'll remember I have a couple of Hawkwind albums. I think I have 2 or 3 albums. I didn't have any of their really early stuff, so now I do, and that's pretty cool. They're a band that I dig. I've never, at least up till this point, been a huge fan, but, they are fucking awesome, man. They just play this crazy psychedelic-y space rock, with cool fucking sci-fi themes, and it's real good stuff. I actually have been wanting to delve more into this band, but I mean, you can only spend so much time with so many different bands, and it's just you can't listen to it all, man. Especially when you have a brain like mine. And the last thing I have is the 6th album from Thelonious Monk, Straight No Chaser. Yes, this is a jazz album, if you didn't know that. This is the 2nd jazz album I've ever owned. Will I own more? I don't know. I couldn't tell you at this point. It is a genre that I am very slowly kind of dipping my toe into the water with. I've only listened to a little bit of this so far, and you know, the reason I bought it is because I was really digging the vibes. At least the first couple songs that I listened to, it was just like, it just has this kind of cheery, happy atmosphere. It's just jazz that kind of reminds me of just a simple, you know, summer day where you don't have anything to do, the sun's shining on you, you're feeling all right, things are okay. Those are the vibes I was getting. Thelonious Monk is, you know, one of the most, you know, legendary jazz artists, and I'm just gonna stop right there because I don't know shit about jazz, so I'd make an idiot out of myself. But I don't know, what do you guys think? Got any jazz fans? Thelonious Monk fans? I mean, that cover art though, very fucking cool. Anyways, guys, that's all I got for now. If anyone's still watching, big hugs. Big hugs. And if you're still watching and you don't listen to a whole ton of prog, go listen to some prog. You know, I'd be happy to give you recommendations. I'm sure people would in the chat. Probably do even a better job than me. Don't worry, I won't have too much more prog update stuff coming up in the future. As much as I do love the genre, I don't usually buy too much at once. I mean, this is the second prog update I've done in the last month, but I don't think you're going to see much more of that in the upcoming what I'll be doing next is, I'm in the middle of moving, so I got a couple cool projects I'm working on, so we'll see where those go, if they turn into anything. And anyways, as always, thanks for stopping by. Louis says hello. He's down there being a lazy bastard, and thanks. We'll talk soon. Cheers.